We're thrilled to have you join us today as we dive into PowerConnect for Splunk and explore some exciting real-world use cases. We truly appreciate your time, and we encourage you to engage with us by utilizing the Q&A option to submit those questions you may have, and we'll be sure to answer each and every one of them. Let's begin by reviewing today's agenda. We're thrilled to introduce Brennan Diamond, our account executive. With nearly 2 years of experience across the commercial, federal, and public sector, Brennan brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the team. He'll start by giving a quick overview of RHONDOS for those who aren't familiar, followed by insights into our partnership with Splunk and a deep dive into Splunk as a platform. After that, we'll hear from our incredible sales engineer, Benjamin Dare. With over 20 years of expertise in SAP Business Administration, Ben will walk us through the PowerConnect solution and share some compelling real-world use cases. With that, let's get started. Brennan, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So for everybody on this call who has not heard of RHONDOS or worked with us or PowerConnect, essentially a little bit about RHONDOS. We're the exclusive distributor of PowerConnect for Splunk in North America. And you're going to learn a little bit more about how PowerConnect and Splunk work together a little bit shortly in a few slides. But as a quick overview, PowerConnect is a SAP certified add-on that allows you to stream SAP data into Splunk in real time. So that means you can get all of that critical data that's locked inside of your customer's SAP environment and bring it into Splunk for analysis, monitoring, and action. RHONDOS, we also offer 24/7 priority one support for all of our customers. We have certified implementation services, and we are the only SAP to Splunk experts in this market. We've worked with, and you can see on the right-hand side of this screen, we've worked with and continue to work with a lot of very large and complex SAP organizations across the world. And the reason these organizations choose to partner with us and continue to partner with us is because we have a very unique combination of technology and expertise that we bring to the table. So on the technology front, we're the exclusive distributor of PowerConnect, and again, one of the only organizations in the world that has the expertise on both the PowerConnect, SAP, and Splunk front. And we kind of blend all that under one roof so we can deliver a really unique experience to your customers. Organizations also partner with RHONDOS because we've been able to prove and show pretty drastic decreases in SAP monitoring costs, mean time to resolution, root cause analysis of SAP performance issues, while also showing pretty significant improvements in security and compliance positions. Some of these successes in these areas have led to them actually speaking publicly at a lot of different environments, and these customers are just continually relying on RHONDOS to help them navigate a lot of changing SAP landscapes or issues. So RHONDOS has been a trusted partner of Splunk for over 8 years, and we're chosen as the go-to partner for all things SAP because we have that really deep expertise of both the SAP and Splunk on our team. So we can help kind of blend and bridge the gap between these two platforms, which is really important when we're talking to your customers and we're kind of bridging two teams together, both the SAP team and a Splunk team. It's important that we're able to kind of bridge that gap and help these two technologies talk to each other and help them understand how SAP data works within Splunk, it can be incredibly powerful for your customer, which Ben's going to show you here in a little bit. And I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but I just want to really touch on this one more time. PowerConnect is 100% certified by SAP. On the bottom part of this slide, you'll actually see the certificates. I know they're very tiny, but if anybody has any questions or want to see them afterwards, we can show this to you guys. But yeah, it's certified for SAP and S/4HANA, S/4HANA Cloud, both Java and ABAP network stacks. And just kind of even going a little bit deeper into this, SAP has a very rigorous standard for certifying any technology that works within that application. So it just kind of goes to as a testament for the time that we spent to make sure this works with our customers, and it's a very well architected solution to be able to work within SAP. With that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Benjamin Dare.
Thank you so much, Brennan. So as Sarah and Brennan alluded to, everybody that works here at RHONDOS is cross-trained in both SAP and Splunk. Before joining RHONDOS almost 3 years ago now, I was a basis administrator for about 23 years. And when I first joined here, my very first task was to get certified in Splunk. If I'm speaking to you all, I have to be able to talk and walk the walk. So you can see there the list of certifications and accreditations I've earned since being here. In my career as a basis administrator, I've worked with just about every application, been an SME for things like PI and back then it was CRM, and just about every OS database combination. So this is really an exciting use case for me. Monitoring has always been one of my passions. And so seeing these two technologies really kind of lit a fire in me. And I get really excited about talking this technology and some of the things that we can do here at RHONDOS. So first of all, why is this use case important? Those of you that are on this call are probably already running SAP, so you understand the criticalness of SAP in any organization. Downtime for SAP, it says here average, I believe it's at a minimum of $10,000 a minute. I've seen that happen before with things like printers going down. Just a simple printer not being available to print something like a bill of lading prevents a truck from leaving a distribution center. And if there are delays in shipping certain products, the receivers of those products oftentimes will charge the shipper money. So, it's a huge, huge landscape that we're talking about. 76% of the world's revenue at some point touches an SAP system, which to me is remarkable. I was at a trade show once and somebody was speaking and mentioned, that they got up in the morning, they got dressed. The jeans that they put on were made by an SAP customer. The shoes they put on their feet made by an SAP customer. The car that they got in on their way to the airport made by SAP. The plane that they got on made by SAP. So SAP is literally everywhere, and this use case and the offerings that we have at RHONDOS are guaranteed to bring some sort of efficiency gains to your organization. So our platform of choice to send SAP data outside, from PowerConnect is to Splunk. And there may be those of you on this call that don't know what Splunk is. So the idea here is for me to give you a high level of what it is. I personally had never heard of it before joining. No offense to our great partners at Splunk. Since I've been here, I now fully appreciate the technology and what it offers and am 100% bought in. But the idea is that Splunk can take any logs from any source in any format and ingest them into their core product offering, which consists of both security and observability software, which, by the way, has been in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years now. So, it's a proven technology in the marketplace. And once that data hits Splunk, it has the ability to create visualizations using its amazing search engine. We run data correlations across all of the different platforms in your landscape to give you real deep insights into what's going on in the landscape and how all of our customers see those validated returns for mean time to detect and resolve issues. So why this is important is I mentioned that there's all these different data sources that are reaching Splunk. And traditionally, I know when I was growing up doing basis, we have different teams that all have disparate logging systems. And especially in SAP, it's known as a 3-tiered architecture because we've got the infrastructure layer, the database layer, and the application layer. Each one of those can have their own logs and metrics that they're looking at. And then even the business can have their own metrics that they're looking at to determine success or failure or efficiency in the market. And so if there's a Sev1, God forbid, something goes wrong, we've all been on those Sev1 calls, maybe not all of you. I unfortunately have. They're not fun. Sometimes they last a long time. But the problem is that traditionally, each one of these teams is looking at their own set of logs. So you've got server guys that are looking at VMware logs, network guys looking at Cisco or Palo Alto logs. and SAP teams looking into performance metrics on SAP. And basis administrators will tell you that there's not really a single place to go to give you the impression of overall health in SAP. SAP basis administrators have to go to several SAP transaction codes to get an overall feeling of health and hopefully get something in there that stands out in their mind as what potentially could be the root cause for one of their issues. The real problems occur when all of these different teams looking at their disparate logs come to the conclusion that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing in their specific logging system that they're looking at where that stands out as what the root cause is. And the problem is that now all of these highly paid technical folks are stuck on this SEV1 bridge call. The business is down until this problem gets resolved. So we continue digging through logs. Nobody can drop from the call because there might be that chance where somebody says, hey, I think I see something I need you to look at. Can you check this out for me? And so you've got, as I mentioned, a lot of expensive resources stuck on a call, all looking through disparate logs, trying to find a solution to these problems that are, costing $10,000 a minute. So this is where Splunk really provides an advantage to business. It gives you a holistic approach because now we're ingesting all of these logs and we're able to correlate that data across all of these different platforms to look at things like anomaly detection. And, you can create these visualizations in any way that you want. So instantly create these red, yellow, green traffic lights and have these things change color to help you pinpoint where issues resolve. And so this is just another example of that. Instead of just looking at the 3-tier architecture and things that are involved in SAP, you can ingest logs from literally anywhere in your organization. Splunk has a website it's called Splunk Base, and it has literally thousands of different apps and add-ons that allow you to monitor all of the different apps, infrastructure, hardware, whatever it may be in your landscape, and put all of that data into a single platform with one of the most powerful search engines on the planet to be able to correlate that data and give you real-time data into what is going on in your organization and pinpoint those pain points immediately. So as an SAP administrator, this is one of the things that I saw when looking to work at RHONDOS that kind of flipped that light bulb switch for me in terms of the possibilities that we could do. SAP landscapes today aren't just on a single site. They're spread around the world. As a SAP solution architect, I was often scoping these types of solutions, but then also working with the teams on the back end to try to troubleshoot performance. And I can tell you it's not an easy task when you have multiple SAP systems passing messages between them, and especially on a global scale. Network administrators will tell you that the easy button is to blame it on the network, but that's not always the case. In this case, it just happens to be that the network in Sydney is what's causing performance degradation. But you get the idea, right? Being able to put all of these different data sources into a single platform provides you this type of visibility to really reduce that time that your business is down and the negative impacts are felt. So far I've talked about performance, but there's a number of reasons why customers come to RHONDOS for the PowerConnect technology so that we can send this data to platforms like Splunk. Today, I'm going to spend a lot of my time going over some of the custom business use cases, but we do have customers that come to us specifically for things like security and compliance. So we can do things, that validate user roles and authorizations, making sure that your password policies are being enforced, validating that there's no changes in the system that haven't been already approved. And then this migration use case. So it's called migration because it is really useful. And I think it's a hot topic right now in the market with SAP pushing everybody to RISE. So we're able to give you that A/B performance metric data to see how your system was performing before you did the migration, post-migration, during the migration, and then also monitor both of those landscapes, which is critically important in standing up new hardware because when you are standing up a new system and doing that data migration, a lot of the issues that you encounter have to do with communication failures. Perhaps, a customer target system hasn't opened their firewalls to allow traffic to flow into your new system, or even internal firewalls to talk to your internal system. So really, really strong, powerful use case. Customers come to us for a number of them. And again, in a minute here, I'm going to go over some of the really powerful custom business use cases that we've implemented for customers. The first thing that people always ask when I've gotten this far in the presentation is, how does this work? So I'll go over this really quickly before jumping into some of our use cases. So as Brennan mentioned, this is a certified SAP add-on. It gets installed directly into the ABAP and Java layers of SAP using standard SAP tooling. So for the ABAP layer, we would use the Saint transaction and install it just as you would any other add-on that you see in your stack. And same applies to Java. For the Java system, we're using the SUM tool, which again is a native SAP tool and installs it just like any other add-on. There are no Z programs, no Z codes. Our software has its own namespace, is fully certified by SAP. You can perform system upgrades without impacting PowerConnect or vice versa. In addition to monitoring ABAP and Java stacks, we also have a really powerful agent that monitors all of your SAP SaaS cloud offerings. So because there is nothing that we can install there, the way that we do this is by installing a small VM. Installing a small Java virtual machine on a VM that you can put anywhere in your landscape. That can be on-prem, in the cloud. Either way, it doesn't matter. Some of our larger customers have this running on a VM in size that's like 4 CPUs, 6 gigs of RAM, no bottlenecks, no latency. So this is a very efficient agent that we have, which is collecting all of this SAP data from the cloud using API polling. And then that data can be masked if you have PII in there, or scrubbed using data filters before we send that data to Splunk for the out-of-the-box dashboards that we have there as well. Our solution comes with over 300 event types that we collect out of the box. All of these are tunable, which is fantastic. So, based on your custom use cases or business requirements, we can do things like turn extractors on or off if you want to reduce your Splunk ingest, or we can also change the intervals at which that data is sent. I think it's also important to note that this data is sent natively, being the via the SAP ICM, and is encrypted both in transit and at rest. All right, so now the reason we're all here, what can this actually do for me? And today, like I said, we're going to focus on some of those high-level business use cases. So let's jump in. The first one that we have here is an SAP ITSI glass table. So you would need ITSI from Splunk for this use case. But again, it gives you this really powerful, view into your SAP system across your landscape. So you can see here, we've got ERP, SCM, SRM, portal, and BW, looking at things like system health, response time, the number of work processes that are in use. And then, important things for sending data in and out of SAP, like the QRFCs and transactional RFCs. But in addition to not just the performance data, we are also getting key indicators here on supply chain and shipping. So just a really great high-level dashboard that gives you the overall health of not just your SAP system, but also key business processes. So let's dig in to a little bit more into something that I know everybody deals with, and that's financial close. I know when I was doing basis at one customer of mine, their financial close was so bad that I actually would have to sit in the room with them while folks were executing jobs so that I could, quote unquote, clear the pathway for these jobs to complete without a delay. And so this is a dashboard that I know that particular customer would be really interested in looking at. Those of you that are in the finance area and execute those jobs know that there are several background jobs that you have to complete for financial close. Lots of checks and balances. When those jobs are done, there's somebody who's got to sign off on those. But the C-suite folks, the CFO are always asking, what's the status? When's this thing going to be done? And so giving them something like this, where they get real-time insights into where the month-end close process is, helps them not come bother you, I dare say bother, while we are working on the actual close process itself. So just another example of how PowerConnect and Splunk can be really useful for your organization. This one I think is more fun as well. So again, now we're looking at things like deliveries, open deliveries, and billing. But then also, where are we in terms of like finance? So for revenue recognition, right? A lot of finance folks, they might not want to run those reports inside of SAP and see them on a typical ABAP screen. because A, they're not pretty, and B, maybe you have to run multiple reports to get the same data that we're looking at on these dashboards. It's really important to note that once all that data gets into Splunk, each one of these panels is just a search away. So we can literally search on any data that's inside of Splunk and present it however you like, whether that be a graph, a number, a spark line, whatever your fancy is. We can present that data to you in Splunk. So another example here, we're looking at sales performance. People always want to know where are we at in the month or the quarter. I know here at RHONDOS, our financial close is coming up here at the end of March. So it's a really good time to buy if you're in the market for some PowerConnect. We're wheeling and dealing over here. But, again, deep insights into the business that help people of your team and your organization get insights into what's going on in the organization. And finally, I want to present to you a fraud investigation use case that helped a very large retailer catch somebody who was stealing from their company. This particular person was very savvy in SAP and knew how to cover their tracks. So they would go and order hundreds of units and have them shipped directly to their house, and then go into SAP and cover those things up. Well, if you know how to cover your tracks inside of SAP, that data is now gone forever. However, when you take that data and you send it to an external party like Splunk, now all of those breadcrumbs that they've left behind are visible for us and auditors to catch these people. So fortunately, within a week of installing PowerConnect in this customer's Splunk environment, they were able to catch that person and did in fact file charges for that person, and I think they ended up doing jail time. So the next question everybody wants to ask, besides, is this thing certified? How does it work? Is how do you make it work for me? And at RHONDOS here, we offer an offering called RHONDOS On Demand, which I believe is much more powerful than your typical software implementation. And the reason I say that is typical software implementations require a straight 2 to 3 weeks of implementation services, and they demand the time of the folks that are going to be maintaining and running this software. And they put you in a room, they show you how to do it, and when they leave, they hand you some documentation and go about their way. If you need to reach out to them for any help other than a break fix, you typically have to open a new SOW. You're going back to the well to ask, those in power for more money for this software that you just implemented. And so there may be a little bit of scar tissue there. Maybe they don't want to pay more money right away. And that's where RHONDOS On Demand comes in. RHONDOS On Demand is a set block of hours that you can use every month at your discretion. And so maybe it is for user training. You want to teach your folks how to create these awesome visualizations that, the consultants at RHONDOS do. Maybe it's, you're trying to facilitate adoption. How do we get users in other groups to start using these amazing visualizations that we deliver out of the box? And so you can use this however you want. Maybe you want our consultants to build the dashboards for you. And that's another way that you can utilize this service. It's really, really powerful. There's lots of different levels to this service, from small to medium to large. I would encourage you to reach out, schedule a demo, and let us show how RHONDOS On Demand, PowerConnect, and Splunk can help you in your organization. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over for questions. Sarah, Brennan, Brian, did we have any questions come in during today's presentation?
We had a few people who mentioned it's a really interesting session. No questions yet. I do want to point out we are in the presence of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, though.
That's amazing.
In attendance.
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, if there are no questions, please take your time, scan this QR code. I look forward to doing a demo for you. I hope my enthusiasm for this software came through. I honestly wish that I had PowerConnect and Splunk when I was doing SAP basis administration. Thank you all for your time. Have a fantastic day.
So we do have one person asking for a link.
Yeah, as a reminder for everyone, you'll receive a recorded version of this webinar along with Brennan and Ben's email address in case if you do have any additional questions And also just feel free to reach out, and we are happy to connect with you at any point.
Ben, we have one question on deployment.
Sure.
So the question is, how long does the deployment take, and what does that look like?
Oh, fantastic question. I love answering this. The great news is because we are installed directly in the application, it takes about an hour. So just like it takes to install any other add-on, you would spin it up in Saint. There is an app that you can find in Splunk base. You install that, and then we're basically exchanging some SSL keys to make sure that that data is encrypted. And those of you that might know Splunk, there's something called a HEC token that we install for securing that communication, and really that's it. We do provide some out-of-the-box users profiles that you can assign to the folks that are responsible for maintaining PowerConnect, and also to background job users that are collecting that data. Great question.
Give it a few more seconds in case any other questions roll in. Another great question. So the question, Ben, here is, could there be a use case discovery workshop that we can run to identify the value for PowerConnect and SAP data in Splunk?
That is another fantastic question. Yes, our customer success delivery manager and I both offer these kind of use case delivery workshops, discovery workshops, where we will come on site and talk about things that most concern you at your organization. I know we did one recently regarding SOC and audit compliance, and came up with some really good use cases that we're implementing for a customer in the Northeast. So absolutely, we can work with you to find additional use cases to help you implement and make this successful, right? The last thing we want to do is make this thing shelfware. So.
And then I know we have 2 minutes left, and I see Brian is actually actively typing an answer to this question, but I'll say it live. So how does Splunk collect logs, metrics, and traces from SAP systems? Obviously, this would be with PowerConnect, but if, Ben, you want to touch on that one more time.
I'm sorry, what was it?
How Splunk collects logs, metrics, and traces from SAP systems, which of course is through PowerConnect.
It is through PowerConnect. The way that it works is there are 3 background jobs that run constantly in your ABAP stack. And those jobs are collecting the metrics, logs, and traces. And then it stores them in temporary tables until we get a confirmation from Splunk that that data has been ingested. So the first job is the one that's running and collecting the data and putting it in those internal tables. The second job is validating that the data is received and updated. And then finally, that third job is there running, and it's checking the first 2 jobs to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, that they aren't getting stuck. And if needed, we'll restart those 2 jobs.
Okay, we're starting to get a lot of questions now. Hopefully we still got some time. So I'll read this one out loud again. Do you have anything on code scanning and IAC with SAP? I can think of modules like HANA, BW, but do you have any information on specifics in this area?
Oh, code scanning. Yes, so absolutely. So we have, with the new observability cloud offering that we have, we can actually go down to the code level for looking at things like performance metrics to see if you have any code that is causing latency in SAP. So yeah, definitely.
And then how does RHONDOS plus Splunk compare with the traditional approach? So I would imagine Solman or Cloud ALM, and just focusing on the ROI of the solution and that we've seen with our customers. Another great question.
So in my opinion, this comes down to a couple of things. The ROI that you get comes from basis administrators not wasting time chasing down issues that either don't exist because you're getting a lot of alert noise from things like Solution Manager or Cloud ALM, and then also the ability to bring the system up faster. That $10,000 a minute adds up pretty quick. And being able to pinpoint where the issues are and get SAP up and live again, or even prevent them from going down, because Splunk does have out-of-the-box machine learning capabilities where we can actually predict that there's going to be an outage before it happens. So keeping SAP up and getting your high-paid basis administrators to do real work and not chase things that aren't there is a great way to get that ROI.
This question was answered, but I do want to just point it out. Do you happen to have any customer examples of sending metrics and events to Splunk Observability Cloud? Which we do, but if you want to talk to
yeah, we do. I'd be happy to set up a demo to show you what that looks like. Getting those service mapping, service maps, if you will, live, updated with all of this SAP interconnectivity, and being be able to do traces on individual SAP services is amazing.
And let's see, Donald Cheery asked the question, how do you ensure that sensitive SAP data such as PII or financial data is properly masked or anonymized when ingested into Splunk for monitoring and observability purposes?
Yep. So there's a number of ways we can do that. PowerConnect out of the box has a number of filters. So we can do things like filter on columns. So if there's particular columns that don't need to be sent over to Splunk, we can restrict those from the data that's sent over. If it is data that you want to show is being sent, we can do that using, traditional Splunk methodologies like data masking. So all of that is completely available out of the box, super easy to do. There's no wizardry that goes on. Yeah, absolutely, we can mask PII.
Miles Liam was asking if there's going to be a recording of this session. Yes, we will follow up this webinar with a recording through email. And feel free, this goes for anybody, if you have any outstanding questions that you walk away with from this call, feel free to respond back with those questions. I'm happy to set up an additional call to discuss a specific use case or anything you'd like to understand better. We have a question in terms of is there any comparison to Security Bridge?
There is, but again, we're the only solution that is installed directly into the application layer. And so our ability to get not just KPI metrics, but deep insights into the data and create your own use cases is really the power behind PowerConnect, right? Sending all that data to Splunk, using AI to help detect and analyze issues. There's really no comparison.
And again, this question was answered, but I think it's a really great question that we get a lot. So how does Splunk deal with high volume SAP transaction data without impacting performance?
Another great question. So those of you who were here for the introduction got to see our impressive NASCAR slide with all of the large SAP customers that PowerConnect and RHONDOS service today. And the great news is that the folks over at Software One that created the software did such a fantastic job of making the software lean and efficient. We have yet to see a customer speak to us about performance degradation inside of SAP by running PowerConnect. We're so confident in that we actually provide out-of-the-box dashboards inside of Splunk so that you can monitor the resources consumed by PowerConnect inside of your SAP stack.
Oh, we got one more question. So how does Splunk and PowerConnect compete or compare to Solman or Solution Manager with SAP in its future Cloud ALM? And how do you specialize in monitoring and alerting?
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions. One of my favorite questions. So on the About Me slide, you may or may not seen in the stats there that I was once certified in both EDE 100 and 300, which are business process monitoring and root cause analysis and Solution Manager. so I know this topic well. The first and primary thing that I'll tell you is that those SAP tools are only focused on the SAP landscape. You're not getting visibility into all of the third-party systems that SAP communicates with. And so one of the more troublesome areas to diagnose as a basis administrator is trying to figure out where the latency is when problems are reported and these third-party systems are included, right? So by having all of those data sources ingested into Splunk and providing those awesome correlation searches, we're able to see where latency exists, not just inside of SAP, but also the third-party systems which are interconnected with SAP. The next thing I'll tell you about is the alerting infrastructure. So CCMS in its own is very rigid. An example I like to talk about is regarding background jobs. So basis folks have to set static thresholds for things like runtime of batch jobs for critical batch processes. And a lot of times we end up with false alerts, inboxes that nobody monitors, and it's kind of a pain. We have to have them for audit because auditors say, well, you have to show me every time these batch jobs fail, but also there's functional batch jobs that are expected to fail, 5 out of 6 times during the day, right? The functional folks will tell you, hey, I only need to know if this job doesn't complete once in a 6-hour period. There's no way to do that with CCMS. When this data is in Splunk, you can now create a search that says, has this job completed at least one time in a 6-hour window? If yes, we've got the green light. If no, let's trigger an alert. So, you can integrate Solution Manager and those things with your ITSM platform, but it's not done natively. It requires middleware, and it's a pain in the neck, right? So Splunk also has direct native integration with your ITSM platform that allows two-way ticket communication when these types of issues arise. So now not only are you not relying on things like emails for alerts coming out of SAP, but you're actually getting actionable ITSM tickets that raise the appropriate awareness based on the impact to the business so that the issues get addressed in a more timely fashion without the alert noise.
Great answer. And then, another question here, and this one's pretty near and dear to my heart because we help a lot of customers in this area, but how does Splunk help organizations comply with SAP security audits?
Ooh, that's a great one. So this is another one that people come to us for security only sometimes. But a lot of customers go out on their own and try to create solutions for doing things like extracting SM20 audit logs, which they can do. But a lot of times, because they are doing it via, some kind of an RFC call or direct database call, they aren't getting that full fidelity data and they aren't getting it in real time. So we can absolutely ingest all of your SAP security data, including things like SM19, to make sure people aren't disabling audit parameters before doing nefarious things and then flipping that back on. But we get that in real time. Like I said, we can set those intervals at which that data is sent to whatever fits your business requirements, and then get real-time alerting on those activities.
Ben, can you touch on PCI DSS and how we handle that data within Splunk? I think
These are
that's more in
acronyms for which I'm not familiar.
Okay, that's a payment card industry. It's a security term for
Security for payment information. So
correct.
yeah, again, it's one of those things that can be masked or excluded from data that's sent. I can't really think of, again, I'm just a basis guy, why you would need somebody's payment information in Splunk unless maybe we were using it for security fraud type data, but all of that data, again, can be masked. And if it is required inside of Splunk for doing something like fraud investigation, Splunk does a phenomenal job of allowing you to set very specific roles. So you could send that data to a separate index inside of Splunk and then restrict access to that index to perhaps only the fraud investigators. So there's all kinds of ways that we could tackle that problem.
All right. Well, I think with all of that, really appreciate everybody's time. And again, we're going to send out the recording after this call. So keep an eye out on your email. If there's any other questions, again, feel free to just reach back out to that email and we'll get that question answered or set up a call.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for joining.